After 3 years, World's Greatest College Weekend is back in Bloomington. Welcome to Bill Armstrong Stadium on a Friday afternoon for one of the greatest traditions in all of collegiate intramural athletics. It's the 34th running of the Women's Little 500. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Bloomington. I'm Griffin Epstein, joined by four-time 5U rider Katie Capusta. Katie, it is an absolute pleasure to be joined by you on such a special, special day for so many people.
And you know, it's so special this year because of all these fans back in the stands after 3 years, like you mentioned. These riders have been waiting a long time, and many of them have not experienced a real race, so this is going to be a really good day for everyone.
A special day. It's been 1,091 days since the last time there was a Little 500 race with fans. We have a third member of our crew, Gracie Barra, and she's down trackside with more on this race.
After a cold and rainy spring, the sun finally decided to come out today. I talked to some of the riders and they said this is about as perfect of weather as they could ask for. Maybe a few degrees cooler and a little bit less wind, but those temperatures are going to reach about a high of 77 during the race and wind at about 8 miles per hour coming from the south, but overall about as good a weather as you could ask for the 34th running of the Women's Little 500.
It is indeed a hot day, but pretty good conditions overall here, Katie. I think nonetheless, though, especially on the track, it's very hot, and this is the hottest day in Bloomington. A lot of Gatorade, a lot of hydration is certainly going to be required for all the riders who aren't used to this heat.
Absolutely, and we've talked a little bit before the race, Griffin. You know, this has been a really unusually cold spring, so these riders really aren't used to it. And we were down there earlier. It's hot out there. These riders just aren't quite used to this. It's going to be interesting if that's going to play a factor. But of course, you know, these riders, they prepare. They've got the Gatorade, they've got the Powerade, they've got the Gatorade shoes, everything you might need, some ice to cool you off. So they'll race at anything at this point to get to here.
Well, let's quickly go through the three biggest storylines we have for this race, and we'll start with, we mentioned it at the top, the fans are back. They make such a big impact, but the other part is there's only a handful of riders in this race that have ever raced in front of fans. It's current seniors that were freshmen back in 2019.
You know, not a lot of senior or freshmen race when they're freshmen. So even these seniors that are in this race have never experienced this. I asked every single team what they're looking forward to, and this was the number one thing, fans back.
Well, the second storyline, it's often the storyline in the Women's Little 500. Kappa Alpha Theta, they are the favorite. Once again, Katie, they had a really good spring series, and they start on the pole this year.
And you know, this is not new. They were good when I was a rider before that, so it's no surprise to see them in the pole position. They are certainly the team to beat this year.
Looking for their 9th championship. That's the most all-time in the Women's Little 5. And the last storyline, the track conditions, the weather, we kind of already hit on it. Track looks pretty good, though. We've had some rain the last couple days in Bloomington. It is very hot, as we mentioned down there.
Yeah, and you know, that could become a factor later on in the race as, you know, more reps are going on. Could get a little dustier. So when we were down there, it looked pretty good, but, you know, things can change with this heat and the sun. It really can make a difference in the track.
All right, let's send it back down trackside once again. Gracie Barra is with the director of the Little 500, Hank Duncan.
Yes, I'm here with Hank. And Hank, we were just talking about how the last time you were here with fans was when you rode in 2019 with Forrest. What is it like to be back?
It feels like I didn't miss a thing, to be honest. Just look around, listen around. That energy, it's palpable. We got the riders to where we wanted to be this year, and now we get to sit back and enjoy. They get to use their talents on the track, and it brings up so many emotions. Being back here with the fans, just meeting up with old friends, Riders Council members, teammates, it's an amazing experience. I love it.
We talk about all this energy. How gratifying is it to see all the work that you put in finally pay off on a day like today?
So much, so much. I genuinely don't think that the general Little 500 fan knows how much work our students put into this event on the track and off the track. It is a year-long process. It does not happen magically. And the fact that they did it, we're here today with the stands packed full of fans, it's amazing. I love it.
A lot of these women are going into their first race, either in the Little 500 or first race with fans. What advice would you give them right now?
Keep your head up. Keep your head up. Keep your head on a swivel. You cannot look down. I know that pack riding does not come naturally to a lot of cyclists out there. Keep your head up and look around you. The race is not where you are. It's always up the road. So even if you think you're in a good position, look around, know who's on the bike at each time. It is more than just what you have in your legs. It's about what other teams have in their legs and following them.
Thank you so much, Hank. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Grace. Always good to hear from Hank. It's his first full year as race director, and I've really enjoyed spending some time and working with him. It's obviously a big day for him, his first full Little 500. He was a former rider with Forrest.
Absolutely. You know, this is the dream job for a Little 5 rider. He gets to have all the fun, and he's put a lot of work into it. So like you said, once that green flag drops, you know, it's from there, it's up to the riders. So.
Well, speaking of the flags, we'll take a look at the rules and the flags for those unfamiliar with the race. There's a look at the flags, Katie. What should fans especially be aware of?
I think the biggest one, which is kind of almost the most common, is yellow. Yellow typically means there's been a wreck. Everyone needs to slow down and keep their distance from the leader. So that means you cannot encroach upon the leader. You cannot get into a better place when the yellow flag is down. But then when the green comes back, that means we're back to race pace and you're off to the races. So yellow is the most important. Riders just need to keep a lookout to make sure that they know what's happening. And, sometimes a wreck can happen and a yellow might not be dropped because it's quickly cleaned up too. So that's the hope.
Only one wreck last year in the women's race. There was no yellow. It was one of the probably cleaner women's Little 5 races we'd seen last year. It was good conditions. So certainly hoping for the riders and their safety once again. And we talk about the other rules. Obviously 100 laps around the track, approximately a fourth of a mile track, just over 25 miles as you see on your screen. 4 riders maximum per team. Every team with the exception of one we talked to will have 4 riders on their team. So you also have to exchange 5 times. So some of these teams, we'll talk about it, have one rider who really stands out, but everyone has to get involved at least a little bit.
Absolutely. And, that's the most important thing. You can have one really good rider, but you need good support riders. So that's the point of it. You got the exchanges and whatnot. But, some riders on these teams may only have one set, but that's their purpose, and that's what they need to do. So usually those exchange numbers aren't a problem, but something to think about that you don't really think about in the race. I got to get all these exchanges in.
Phi Gamma Nu, by the way, that one team that will have 3 riders today. Their 4th rider out with the concussion she sustained last week. Well, we mentioned Kappa Alpha Theta. They are the favorite coming in. A lot of big storylines. And one of the riders, Audrey Laval, Gracie Barr had a chance to mic her up, and we got to see a little bit of the personality of Audrey. Let's take a listen. Or maybe. Well, unfortunately, we didn't have any audio on that. We would have gotten to see the funny side of Audrey Laval, but maybe we'll get a chance later to watch that. But we talk a little bit more about Theta. Last year, they came in as one of the favorites, kind of a unique scenario. They actually started at the back of the pack. Last year, Team Pursuit was used instead of quals, and they had COVID issues, so weren't able to compete in Team Pursuit. But nonetheless, they got up 5 laps in all the way to the top of the pack, but then DG pulled away, and Theta really uncharacteristically struggled with their exchanges. And as much as they're a powerhouse, they haven't won now since 2018.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising to hear, but you kind of had some 2 odd races in the past 2 years. So I mean, no race in 2020, and last year was just different. It's just hard to get a gauge on. But they know that. You talked to Theta, and they knew they had to work on their exchanges. So I'm sure they've worked on that a lot over the spring, and they've got it down. I was watching them a little bit during warm-up, and they seem fine and comfortable. They know what they got to do in order to win it, and they certainly have the team to do it this year.
3 of their 4 riders in the top 8 of ITTs, and all 3 of those riders return from last year's team that ended up finishing 3rd, with Delta Gamma taking home the 33rd edition of the Women's Little 500. Well, we have another piece. Hopefully this one works. We'll give it a shot. I got a chance to catch up with Kappa Kappa Gamma a couple weeks ago. They are one of the big story. Okay, we're going down to the field. Our Gracie Barra has more.
I'm I'm here with Theta Phi Alpha captain Sophie Downey, and we talked a lot about how this has been a transition year for you after losing Coach Courtney Bishop, and a lot of that responsibility falling on you as seniors. What has that been like?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like you said, a lot of the responsibility has fallen on the seniors. We're really fortunate to have 3 senior returning riders who've been with the program since 2019, so we went through the 2020 year, the 2021 year without fans. We're happy to be here, and we've put everything we have into making it work. This is our first year with Caitlin Camplain as our coach. She was a 2019 alum, but like I said, this is our first year without Courtney Bishop, so the pressure's on. We're just out here trying to prove we're more than a team, or we're more than Courtney Bishop's team, and we can get it done with these 4 riders right here.
Definitely. That like coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. So when Courtney, when we lost Courtney, we also lost access to a lot of equipment. So we came into this year with only 1 set of rollers. It was a large part Kat and I. We had to fundraise, cut deals with companies, and try and scrape together everything we have. We have a full set of rollers. We have a full set of bikes now. We have almost everything we need, but it was one heck of a push to get it together and get us ready for the winter training season.
And you said that a lot of people might see this as a disadvantage with you guys having to recruit so much, but you thought of it as something that brought you guys together. Now that you're finally here together on race day, how are you feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. We've struggled with recruiting since losing Courtney, since not having a real race since 2019. But we've got 3 strong returning riders. We've got a rookie. But a lot of people think, we only did quals with 3. We don't need to take them seriously. It's a fluke. They're in that front row. But we're here trying to prove we can get it done with these 4 right here, and it's a large part going to be these 3 senior riders. But we see it as an advantage. We work together really well. We know our strengths and weaknesses, and we're ready to go out there and show everyone what we got.
Thanks so much, Sophie.
Thank you.
South Indiana, she's a senior. Kate Gunderson from Indianapolis, a junior. A freshman from Evansville, Olivia Henderson, Katie Shen from Westfield.
They really are playing the underdog card, even though they qualified 3rd.
Absolutely. That's a really hard thing to get over. Having to fundraise for all those bikes, all those rollers. Biking is not a cheap sport. And they, have more of an identity than Courtney Bishop. They have to figure out what the future of their team is. And obviously, 3 strong seniors, that's kind of a big deal, too. 3 people that have veteran experience in this race is going to go a long way.
And there's not a lot of experience overall in this race, obviously, with 2020 being canceled, and last year was such a small field as well with only 17 teams. There are multiple teams that didn't even field a team last year that are back, so some teams, no one has any race experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about Theta. They have 3 veteran riders too, so that will be an advantage for those 2 teams. Absolutely.
Well, one of those teams that did not race last year, Kappa Kappa Gamma, is back in the field this year. They qualified 5th, trying to bring back the legacy of one of the best teams in the women's Little 500.
Powerhouse is making noise again.
It's been one of the coolest experiences I've had in my life so far.
Kappa Kappa Gamma Cycling, 5-time champion and perennial top 10 team, disappeared off the top lines for much of the last decade. But they've undergone a transformation in the last 3 years.
I feel so honored to be a part of something that kind of started at the bottom, and now we're building all the way back up to the top.
Kappa will line up 5th on race day. The success starts with their star rider, senior Isabella Oganovich.
Naturally, she's talented as an athlete, of course, but she also has a grit about her that, hey, how can I get better? And it shows. And Bill and I even said in that first year, Izzy can be a top 10 rider.
Now she is, 3rd in individual time trials and 6th in missing out. But she is more than a great rider, is the only Kappa with any Little 5 race experience.
She's glitter and glue to this group. I mean, she brings a lot of sparkle, but a lot of solidarity to this team, and she pulls them and she rallies them in our group chat, and she's constantly saying what everyone needs to hear.
Kappa's past success is helping fuel its present rise. Alumni of the house and the team are behind the riders, starting with their coach.
Our coach Gina she's our rock of the team. She's kind of the reason I think that we have come to the point that we are now. Without her, we probably wouldn't have a team this year.
Indeed, Kappa did not have enough riders last year to even field a team. Coach Noss, a Kappa Cycling alum who won the race in '96, had concerns even this year about garnering the excitement in the house she once found.
We had a moment that I thought we were going to have a team, and then there's another moment I'm like, we might not have a team.
But Kappa found the commitment. 4 rookies joined, and by winter, the team started putting in results worthy of a contender. For Oganovich, it's a whole different feeling on race day.
With doing well in quals, I think there's more pressure when it comes to race day. Pressure that I didn't really feel my freshman year.
Pressure that reminds the field Kappa Cycling is back.
So there's Kappa Gamma, who will qualified 5th, their highest since 2013. You saw Isabella Oganovich. She's certainly one of the top riders in this race, and they've won 5 championships. Their last was in 2006, but that's the second most, and it's certainly good to see a former powerhouse start to build their way back up.
Yeah, you know, really cool just to see someone that's won back in the 90s. She wants to see her team come back to the top, and they're certainly doing that. And when I asked Izzy earlier this week, you know, what they're looking forward to, she said they want to get Kappa back to where they're at. So very fitting. You know, this could be it. She 3rd in ITTs. I mean, she could win a sprint finish if it comes to it.
She's a senior. She did race in 2019, so she has some experience. They have 2 rookies, though, on their team, and Izzy, the only one with any race experience. Starting to lay out the bikes. We've got some ceremonies coming up as well, but Gracie Barra is down trackside, and she's going to tell us more about another team on the front lines with Alpha Chi Omega. Grace?
Yes, Alpha Chi Omega finished in the middle of the pack last year, but they were an all-rookie team, and now they have all returning riders. And I was talking to their coach, Dave Harstad, earlier, who's actually professor here at Kelly and rode for Fiji back in the day, and he's just so incredibly proud of how far they've come. And I talked to their captain, Olivia Rogers, and she said that Dave is kind of like their dad. He doesn't have kids, so he treats them like their kids, but they're all really excited to be here on race day.
Well, thanks, Grace. Another a team with a lot of experience. I think that really defines the top row of this race with Theta, AKIO, and TPA. All 3 of them are returning at least 3 of their riders from last year, and AKIO returning all 4 riders from last year. You can't get any more experience than that.
Absolutely. You know, I was talking with some of their alum. They are so excited for this team to be second in the poll, but you know, AKIO's never won. Yeah. So this could be their year. They've got a lot of alumni. Sometimes they call them fence warmers out there celebrating and, you know, helping coach them about through what their experiences were. So that's also an advantage when you have so many alum that care and are wanting to help.
Their best finish ever was 2nd all the way back in 1998. They finished 7th last season, but certainly 2 of the biggest contenders, AKIO and TPA, to try to challenge Theta. I think one other team we wanted to hit on, and one specific rider on Melanzana, they qualified 13th, but we'll maybe talk a little bit later about why they're so far back in quals. They played it safe, but they have the top rider in this race in Grace Williams. She was 1st in ITTs. She won missing out going away, and yet she is only a rookie, but she's an incredible athlete, a former cross-country and track star, first at New Mexico and then at Indiana, before now focusing on cycling.
Yeah, I mean, an incredible athlete. Really looking forward to seeing her today. You know, she could be an interesting factor in this race, potentially using her speed to pull away. That's definitely an option for them. But like we've talked about, you know, she won missing outs by a long shot. So if it comes down to a sprint and Grace Williams is in there, I mean, I think it's going to be really tough to beat her.
It is a pretty young rest of the team. They do have Captain Abby Teed, but that is their only race experience on Melanzana, who's also trying to win their first ever Little 500. Another team we haven't mentioned, but obviously they won the race last year. As you look at the lap counters high up on the south end zone here at Armstrong Stadium, Delta Gamma, they qualified in 10th, also took things pretty cautiously in quals. Not as much experience. They lost 3 of their 4 riders from that championship team last year, but obviously a 4-time champion and have had a lot of success in the last 10 years. They'll be another team to watch.
Well, honestly, DG's a lot like Theta. They have a historic, you know, winning tradition with them. So they have a lot of support. They have a lot of girls in the past that have had, you know, either won or been top 3. So they have that support. But yeah, I mean, they only have 11 laps of race experience from last year with Eleanor Madeline. So it'll be interesting to see how these rookie riders adjust, but like I said, they have the support and they have people helping them figure out what to do in the race.
If you missed last year's race, it was DG dominated it. They pulled away really earlier than we'd ever seen it in the women's Little 500 race, pulled away in the 20th lap, lapped the field early on. It was only the second time ever in women's Little 500 history that we had seen that happen. And Kappa Alpha Theta tried to catch up to them a few times, but they never really got any help, only got within half a lap, and DG really cruised to a race victory.
Absolutely. It's really hard to do that, so I just hope that maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe it's a more exciting sprint finish this year.
All right, let's send it down to the field. Our PA announcer, Chris Drosis, as we get ready for the national anthem.
Honoring those who are now protected and remembering those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce to you Indiana University a cappella group, Resting Pitch Face. Please rise and remove your hats as Resting Pitch Face performs our national anthem.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Wrestling Pitch Face, ladies and gentlemen. As the starting riders come to the start-finish line and we get ready for racing, we present Indiana University's men's a cappella group, Another Round, with Back Home Again in Indiana.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home. Back home again. And it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through fields I used to roam. When I dream about the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home.
Straight no chaser with back home again in Indiana, one of the most special moments of this little 500. Goosebumps. Katie, what are the feelings as the rider's on the track going through your head as you hear that?
I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's almost emotional to listen to as a rider, as a previous rider. You see, I was watching some of the Theta fence warmers, the DG fence warmers. They had their arms around each other as former riders. It means a lot.
It is a special moment for sure. President Pam Whitten on the mic. Let's listen in.
100. Ride smart. Keep your heads up. Good luck and Godspeed. And now for the words we have waited all year to hear. Ladies, mount your little 500 bicycles.
First year as president for Pamela Whitten, the first time she gets to say those words. And 3 pace laps around the track for these riders to get us started. All right, well, as they start their first lap around the track, let's take a look at the 8 rows here. Let's we can try to get it back to the first row. We're going really quickly through the rows right now, as you can see. Kappa Delta, Teeter CSF, row 4, Delta Gamma, Alpha Gamma Delta, and Phi Gamma Nu. We'll slow it down here. Okay, row 4, we obviously talked about DG. They are farther back, but certainly a team you think that could make their way back up.
And they're not too far back to make a run for the front. You certainly have seen it like you saw with Theta last year, so they're not in a horrible position. They're fine.
Row 5, Melanzana Independent Council Cycling and Ride On. Certainly Melanzana, another team, played it very cautiously at quals, but they have the best rider in this race.
And you know, Melanzana's right behind DG, which might make it a little bit harder for them to kind of get out since they're both on the inside. So we'll kind of have to watch both those teams closely. Those are the 2 teams we think maybe in the middle of the pack that, you know, could make a difference today.
Take a look at row 6, Delta Zeta, Sigma Kappa, and Alpha Omicron Pi. What stands out about these 3, Katie?
You know, I talked with Sigma Kappa. They actually didn't have a coach in the fall. So they really struggle with recruiting and whatnot, but they were able to find a Little 5 alumni to help them. They said that has made a huge difference for them in hoping to build their program in the future.
Hank Duncan said they were one of the most motivated and eager teams he has ever seen, the Little 5 race director. Row 7, our penultimate row, Alpha Delta Pi, Phi Mu, and Sigma Delta Tau.
Obviously have to give a shout out to Phi Mu. That's who I rode for back in the day. So very proud of these girls. And they have a new coach this year with Emily Heldman. She rode and graduated in 2019. She was quite the rider. So they have a really good leader behind them today.
And Alpha Epsilon Pi rounds us out alone in row 8. And we'd like to wish a special Chag Sameach, a happy Passover, to the 2 Jewish sororities in this race.
Absolutely. And AE5, they didn't race last year. They're an all-rookie team working to, you know, build a program, try to get, you know, more participation in this.
All of these riders getting ready, a lap and a half more. Let's send it down one final time before the race to a 3rd member of our crew, Gracie Barr.
Abby Hummels is leading the pack for Theta in the front right now on the pole, but it's actually the first time that the senior captain has ever raced in Little 5. She was supposed to race last year, but then her coach Ryan Knapp told her just a few days before the race that she was actually going to be sitting out because she was dealing with a hamstring issue. But now in her senior year, it's going to be her first and last Little 500 here in Bloomington.
You know, we're looking forward to seeing Theta today, but who can beat Theta? That's the big question. It's going to be a really exciting race. And, you know, Abby Hummels is a good sprinter, but like we talked about, Grace Williams has the legs on her, so we'll see how she comes out of this pack.
And it's interesting because races just turn out so differently. Last year, was not close at all with DG pulling away. 2019, you actually had something similar where Ski took a very big lead in that race. However, unlike for DG, it backfired for them. They ended up getting passed late, and Teeter won that race. In 2018, which was Theta's last win, was a thrilling sprint finish. You had 11 teams in that final pack. So all these teams have plans, right, Katie? But it's kind of once the race starts, you never know what's going to happen.
I mean, the week leading up to the race, you talk through every single scenario, what happens if this happens, etc. So these teams are prepared, especially ones that have seen success before. But, you know, when you're in this position right now, you're this last half lap of this past pace lap, man, the nerves are kicking in. You're getting nervous, but it's so exciting. This is what you've worked. I mean, these ladies have worked multiple years for this race, so it's going to be fun.
Green flag is getting ready as they speed up and get ready to start the 34th running of the women's Little 500. For many of these teams, it's been 3 long years since they've been able to race, but it's time for the 34th running of the women's Little 500, the green flag, and we're underway. Theta quickly off to a quick start, and we'll certainly expect them to pull a lot, Katie. That's what they do in most of these races.
Absolutely. They have a lot of strong legs on this team, but they don't want to pull this whole race. I mean, the first, you know, half lap, they're going to try to pull off as soon as they can. You can already see them getting over. They want someone else to get in there and help out.
Kayo pulling up, and that is E on the inside as well. He's going to see a lot of movement here in these first 5 laps. What do you kind of look for the first 10 laps of a race, Katie?
Well, to be honest, like we talked about earlier, I'm looking for Melanzana and DG, but they're both still tucked back there, and so is Kappa Delta. Podium and New already making a good move too. So there's a lot of movement. It's hard to keep track here in the first 10 or 12 laps, to be honest.
Kayo will slot in front for now, but you'll see a lot of teams really trading spots early, trading who gets the pole, and certainly with the riders and how long they're on the bike is so key as well, Katie, with especially a lot of these teams having top sprinters.
Absolutely. The first set is typically a little bit longer. You kind of want to try to be able to get a good burnout, but still want to have a good establishment in the pack. So, you know, you might see maybe 10, 12 lap sets here at the beginning, but here you see Theta coming in. I think Kappa is getting a little fed up. I think they might just want to kind of pull. They're kind of been towards the front too.
That's Izzy Oganovich, who we saw in the pregame package for Kappa, finished 5th in ITTs, and she's putting in some early work here for Kappa. Teeter and Corinne Miller, who won the race in 2019 as a freshman, also out front early here in the women's Little 500.
We didn't get a chance to talk about her much pre-race, but she's also an incredible rider. Rookie of the Year in 2019, 2nd in ITTs. She is also a phenomenal sprinter, so interesting that she's actually starting the race too.
Teams come through to complete their 3rd lap of the race, and what stands out too, Katie, is that it's just so loud in here. The stands are almost entirely packed. There's not a lot of open seats, and talking to a lot of the sororities and teams, they're expecting 150, 200 plus here at the track as Alpha Chi Omega takes a early lead here on lap number 4.
Absolutely, these stands are filled, and I wasn't expecting anything less. You know, it's a lot of fun, and I was kind of intrigued to see how the backstretch would look with the new Jerry F. Tardy Center, but we've got a lot of fans pushed against the fence. That's what you like to see.
Fans dispersed all over, lots of colors for the respective sororities. It's a really cool rainbow to watch. Olivia Rogers, the senior captain for Alpha Chi Omega, leading the way. Corinne Miller of Teeter right behind her as they start their 5th lap of racing here in the women's Little 500. Again, 100 laps, approximately a quarter of a mile track. Make it. These racers will race just over 25 miles today on this hot day in Bloomington. A little bit of a breeze as well, Katie, about 10 miles per hour, and could be a little bit of a factor possibly, especially with exchanges. Wind can make it tricky.
Absolutely. You know, it's kind of coming out right really where they are, coming out of turn 4. But I just want to mention really quick, Akayo's been on the front for a long time. She is pulling out wide, wants someone to pull through, and she looks slow. This is where things can get dangerous right here. Look how slow everything is. So we have to keep an eye on the back of the pack. see what could happen.
Alpha Gamma Delta on the outside, maybe making a little bit of a move with Katie Crawford, AGD, in their first race since 2019. Especially a lot of the teams in the back of this pack, it's just so good to see them back out in the race. See Phi Gamma Nu, PGN up there in the front as well. So many of these riders, some have trained 3 years but haven't been able to race, and this is finally the day they've been waiting for. Thousands of days often of waiting for one day in April.
Absolutely. There's a lot of nerves at this point. I'm kind of curious when things are going to pick up a little bit, and these top teams are going to say, okay, let's spread this out a little thinner. This is getting too wide. I mean, we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5 wides at some point in this pack. Here you go. You have Kappa kind of pulling out. She may be wanting to come in for an exchange. No, it doesn't look like anyone's in their pit, so maybe she's just going to take the race.
Yeah, Isabella Oganovich really aggressive early. Katie Wang of CSF cycling on the inside right now for CSF. Alpha Chi Omega's been in the front as well through 6 laps of this race.
We saw a really good view there how wide this pack is right now, and what are we on lap? We're almost 7, so teams are starting to think about when are we going to exchange. Is it going to be 10? Is it going to be 12? DG's kind of still in the back here. She's trying to make a move up towards the front, but there's not a lot of room.
21 teams of the 22 are in this first pack. And it is, as you said, really 5, 6 wide, but there's a lot of drafting opportunities when you can stick in the middle of the pack.
Absolutely, but if it's that wide, the people in the front of that line are still drafting, so still makes it a little bit difficult.
Ao Pai, who had a brief lead, and again, Oganovich, it looks like around the edge, as well as the purple jersey of Crew Cycling.
Trying to keep a lookout here for Melanzana's. DG made a really good move up in that last lap, so they're, towards the front.
Crew Cycling's going to make our first exchange of this little 500, and pretty clean one there to start. But obviously the exchanges make you lose a lot of ground. You have to be very tactical in your sets.
She didn't have a great burn there. That makes the rider, I mean, she is sprinting as fast as she can go. There's Phi Mu taking an exchange, a little bit of a botch there, but got the bike back up.
A little bit of a fall there. A couple teams on the back stretch making some exchanges. Kate Berger was the one on the bike for Crew, excuse me.
So Crew had no problem catching this pack because it's kind of slow right now. There's no one really wanting to thin it out because all these riders are getting close to the end of their sets.
See Teeter in front, and we talked about Grace Williams for Melanzana. She's on the bike right now, drafting behind Corinne Miller of Teeter. Those are your 2 top riders individually in this race. They were first and second, respectively, with Williams and Miller in ITTs.
So yeah, Melanzana had no problem getting up towards the front, so they're looking really good, probably happy with what's going on. AKO looks like they're going to come out for an exchange here. They have a rider set up for a bike-to-bike exchange coming up.
Jenna Rogers is going to get on the bike for Olivia Rogers. You can see a burn to get ahead and try to make up some ground. Looks like we're going to see a few other teams exchange as well. Right On will make an exchange, and
Olivia had a great burn. Look at how well set up she is now to get in there. That was a fantastic burn by her.
All the experience of AKO that we talked about, all 4 riders back from last season.
Kappa has kind of fallen off a little bit. They had a tough exchange there, so she's really working hard to get back up as well.
Independent Council Cycling, ICC, in the front now, and we'll see a burn around the edge as well as we approach the 10th lap here as the riders cross the line. The standings are certainly changing a lot as we see first exchanges for a lot of these teams. Kappa Delta will make an exchange.
Looks like
Crew Cycling and CSF as well.
IC Cycling had to serve some sort of penalty, so that was what she was doing there. She had a pretty good burn, but because KD was exchanging, made it a little harder for her to get out.
So ICC losing a lot of ground on that penalty and falling behind the pack, but we still have 15 of the top teams in that front pack right now.
This is where things get fun because the exchanges are happening. You don't quite know it, just kind of like craziness. So it's a lot of fun to see what's going on and who's exchanging, who's burning, who's just trying to make some space and spread this out. TPA coming out for an exchange as well.
Pack starting to thin out slowly, over a tenth through this quickly moving race, almost at 10 minutes. TPA now an early lead, starting third in quals, their best ever. So they'll make an exchange on the far side. Interesting position, we talked about it before the race, that TPA, it really them and Melanzana, the only contending teams on that backstretch.
Well, it's interesting. I feel like where they positioned their pit is really kind of in a spot that you typically don't like to be, but I was reminded that Jet Black was also in that pit last year when they won, so maybe they feel some good luck. They have had a history with Jet Black in the past with Courtney coaching both those teams, so maybe it's a, you know, some luckiness there. Oh,
and we have a crash. 4 riders are down right at the start-finish line. We'll see if the caution comes out. No riders look to be seriously injured. CSF is down, Delta Gamma as well, and TPA, one of the contenders, they locked bikes. TPA and Delta Gamma, and looks like the TPA rider is going to need to find someone to switch off. So our first crash.
Oh, yeah, they're really far behind. They're having to switch out bikes. They're running across the field. That's too bad. She's about to be about 3/4 of a lap down.
Went down. The handlebars were flipped over for TPA. So one of the contenders in an early crash, but everyone else survived as Kappa Alpha Theta is going to take a lead here 12 laps in. Alpha Chi Omega behind him. Well, we've got a special guest. Let's send it down trackside to our Gracie Barra.
I'm here with Dave Blason. Dave rode for Phi Kappa Psi back in the 60s and won with them in 1962, and that's what the movie Breaking Away was based off of. And
basically some of the experiences that Teshich and I had together during that spring semester, and some of the other activities, why, yeah, we were loosely put into the movie of Breaking Away.
Yeah, and you were telling me how you've been to every race since 1957 with the exception of last year because they weren't allowed in, what it's like being back here.
That's true. I've been here every year, either as a competitor or as a spectator since 1957, except for, of course, last year.
What advice would you have for these women who are out there and maybe their first little 500 ever?
Well, I'll tell you, they're really doing a great job. I mean, the stronger teams are riding well in the pack. It looks a lot like the way the men race now, unlike some of the earlier women's races. So they've really made a lot of progress over the years.
What's your favorite part of coming back every year?
Oh, it's like a rebirth. It was really through this whole experience of Little 500 where I actually first grew in self-respect. And so for me, it was a life-saving experience, and for me, it's my rite of spring.
And we talk so much about how Little 500 is based in tradition. What makes it so special?
It's not just the race itself, but it's all of that happens all during the semester while you're training and preparing, and the camaraderie with your own rider, the people on your own team, but also the other riders. I mean, anybody that ever rode in the race, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a brother of them.
Thank you so much, Dave. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Grace. It is still a busy pack. How about Ride On Cycling, though? They qualified just 15th, and they are currently in the front of the lead pack right now, which is got a lot of traffic early. It's Kara Gerber on the bike right now for Ride On.
Well, we're seeing some impacts from that crash just a little bit ago. DG was actually really lucky because that crash happened right in front of their pit, so they were able to get a bike and a rider out right away. Whereas we were just talking about TPA's where they chose to go.
All the way on the
all the way on the other side. That posed a problem just there. I mean, that's really just unlucky. But DG's already back in the pack, whereas we have TPA and FIMU now. They were both in that wreck working together, but they are, I don't know, they're almost a half lap, a little bit more than a half lap behind.
And it is certainly possible to come back. We saw in the men's race last year, Phi-Psi got into multiple crashes and ended up still being in contention in the last lap.
The key to getting back in is working together. So Bayou just did an exchange. I don't know if they'll be able to catch back up, but TPA cannot do this by themselves. They're going to have to find someone to work with, and right now there's really no viable option.
Kappa Delta takes a lead here now. We are 18 laps, make it 19 into this 34th running of the women's Little 500. It really does breeze by very quickly with only 100 laps in this race. And we already saw the first row of exchanges for all the teams, now into the second sets. And this race certainly has sped up a little bit and widened out.
We got Phi Gamma Nu up there as well, and AD Pi, I believe.
AD Pi out around the edge. That's not maybe a spot you'd expect them to be in. They qualified 19th, and a really good start for them. They were 8th last year, which was their best result since 1999. So AD Pi trying to continue their upward trend here in this race. They are going to make an exchange on the far side.
They actually have a former cutters coach, or cutters rider that's coaching them this year, Zach Stevens. So getting some good expertise and helping them through what they're going through. I mean, they're just about to catch that pack from their exchange as well.
Kappa Delta doing a lot of the polling early here. It's Kira Ferry, the sophomore out of Westfield, Indiana, north of Indy. And right behind her, Phi Gamma Nu. And their second rider in, I have too many papers and too many names maybe to find it right now. I believe Alyssa Wang on the bike for Phi Gamma Nu. Another team in the back of the pack qualified 12th, but they finished 12th last year as well, so trying to build off some success as well just in their 4th year of racing.
There was a little bit of a gap there, and it's kind of coming again. Theta will close it again, but they're kind of pulling too because there was a gap, so she's working hard as well.
So Wang slots in front, the senior out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. They'll make an exchange. Ride On will exchange as well. Kappa Delta on a crash, Ride On and Phi Gamma Nu collided on the exchange. And that's hard when we talked about it before the race. Two teams make an exchange at the same time, and it did not work out well there for either team.
You know, I wasn't watching that specific exchange super closely, but I'll be interested. Oh, there it goes. Kind of what happened, whose fault it was. It could have been, you know, that could be a penalty later on, something to think about.
Alyssa Wang colliding there, getting off the bike with the two Phi Gamma Nu riders. And might see some more exchanges here as the lead pack speeding up. And indeed, some of the riders getting ready. Teeter ready to make an exchange. As will Akayo as well, getting on the bike. Claire Bruin, the junior out of Carmel, for the second qualified Akayo. And Theta making a change as well, the favorites in this race.
Teeter passed up on that exchange. I think she wanted to get a little bit more space. There was too much going on. But I don't know. I don't know if she'll be able to get enough space. She might have kind of burned herself out, so that'll be interesting. There's going to be 3 exchanges here right back to back, so something to think about. It's going to be kind of chaotic here in a moment.
Second round of exchanges as we march towards the quarter mark of this women's Little 500, and we'll see if all of these are clean. Three rows going to make exchanges. There's Teeter, Kappa Gamma, and Crew will go as well. Well, we have some great sponsors here in our 34th Women's Little 500, and we certainly want to recognize them and everything they do to make it possible. NBC Indy 500 broadcast, Canary, the Avenue on College, Coca-Cola, Pizza X, a personal favorite, Salesforce, so many great sponsors. Thank you to all of them for making the Little 500 and this broadcast possible.
I may be wrong, but looks like TPA is getting lapped now. Have to double check that, but they may now be almost a full lap down. Things are spreading out quite a lot here with all those exchanges. It's kind of chaotic.
Melanzana on a burn, Kappa Gamma trying to follow, but it is Melanzana in front now, and they're gonna try to build a little bit of space.
We were maybe expecting this, you know, seeing if Melanzana could pull away once they got into the position after starting that the race. So this isn't that surprising, but now it's who's strong enough to catch her.
Melanzana has the top rider in the race. in Grace Williams, and she is on the bike right now. The senior out of Bloomington, former cross-country and track racer at New Mexico and then IU. She broke numerous records at Bloomington North High School, and she is building up a quarter of a length lead for Melanzana right now. How about this?
Wow.
And you talked to a couple coaches, and they said, Grace Williams, there's no one better in this race. She has an ability to beat everyone, but we thought maybe that would be just put yourself in a sprint finish. But obviously, seeing what DG did last year, Melanzana is building themselves a comfortable lead here.
Well, this is when it's going to get interesting, is when they decide, when Grace decides that she's coming out for an exchange. How much can this pack gain? They have to be looking for that, and that's hard because they're on the other side. So it doesn't look like anyone's coming out for an exchange anytime soon. Grace looks very calm and very comfortable on that bike. She has quite the stamina.
The follow pack, Ski, DG, Theta as well. If you're wondering where TPA is one of the favorites, they got into a crash and are well over half a lap back right now. Two early crashes, one big one. Both TPA and Delta Gamma got knocked way back. But it is Melanzana and Grace Williams right now with a early lead. And I mean, she just looks different right now than all of the other riders on the track.
She looks so calm. I'm going to kind of do a throwback real quick. When I was a sophomore, Tabitha Sherwood was very much like her. She had the stamina and the sprint just like her, and they looked similar on the bike. So smooth and so comfortable. I mean, being a cross-country and track runner, I mean, she probably has the stamina to be doing this, but depends on if her teammates can help keep this gap. But at this point, we're getting to be about a half a lap ahead.
Williams ran cross-country and track last season, and the COVID-abbreviated year was on the Big Ten championship, or the team that competed in the Big Ten championships that finished 4th last season under longtime head coach Ron Helmer. And obviously all that athleticism can really translate to the track. So Grace Williams and Melanzana with a comfortable lead. The follow pack is really broken up. Alpha Chi Omega in front, Kappa Kappa Gamma, Ski, 80 Pi and Teeter all in there. 80 Pi, we mentioned them earlier. They continue to ride up on the front. They've been one of the early surprises of this race. Ride-On's had a good start as well.
Love to see that. Love to see a dark horse. My 5U girls know that was a big part of our mentality when we were riders. So it's fun to see teams that are maybe you don't think are competitive, but they're up there.
See Teeter and DG kind of in the back of that follow pack. About 5 riders, but they're all chasing Grace Williams right now. She broke away in the 23rd lap, right about when DG did it last year. And she has built herself a hearty lead for Melanzana, trying to win their first ever Little 500. And I guess the question now is, Katie, how much longer on this set can Grace Williams go to build this lead for Melanzana? They're going to have to put someone else on the bike eventually.
I feel like she's been on the bike forever at this point. I don't know. I mean, I think in the women's race, a 15-lap set is about the max. Especially, this is just ITT after ITT at this point. But they want her on the bike as long as possible right now because she's the rider in this group that can pull the biggest lead.
She is starting to lap even some of the top 10 in the pack. Just at a faster speed than everyone else. She's a half a lap ahead of the follow pack right now. So as Ride On, Kappa Kappa Gamma Ski making a change as well. It is Grace Williams and Melanzana in front. 31 laps gone here in the 34th running of the Women's Little 500. Griffin Epstein, Katie Kapusta joining you on a beautiful day in Bloomington. It is the hottest day of the year in the upper 70s. The sun is peeked in and out of the clouds. We had a little rain overnight. And it has been a really perfect day as a fan for racing. Maybe a little too hot for the riders.
Yeah, it's a little hot. But I mean, when you are training for this for so long, you want to see a little sunshine, a little warm.
Kappa making an exchange, will fall behind the lead pack. It's Theta right now who's leading that lead pack. Right behind them is DG, but they are a lap back actually with getting into that crash. Ski there as well, as is Ride On, but it is a full half a lead lap for Melanzana and Grace Williams.
I don't think DG's down. I think they're still in
Okay.
this. I think they caught back up. They just did an exchange about 2 laps ago, but they caught back up. Or they're trying to now to Theta, because Theta's now on their own.
Well, speaking of Theta, our Gracie Barr got a chance to mic up one of their riders, Audrey Laval, and show off a little bit of her personality. Let's take a listen.
Hi, I'm Audrey Laval, and today you're going to be mic'd up with me at the track. Woo! Okay, here we go. I would like to give the quote of a wise man once said, there can be no negative thoughts on the bike. It's a little muggy. It's so dry right now. Oh, okay, chill, chill, chill. I am ready. I was thinking of different nail color options for racing. Exchange in 4! The sun looks glorious, if nothing else. That was 4, right? That was 3. Confidence, key. Okay, I'm just gonna get a little water. 2 wide. Oh, that was a good one. That was a good one. Positive mindset here. There's Anusha. How's it going? Oh, I'm so glad. She got hit by a car last week. That's all she did. Are you very muddy? Ew, the bugs. It's never gonna be easy to win the race, so you're gonna have to be in pain, right? Oh yeah, that one hurt. Yeah, I hurt on those last few for sure. I kinda gotta pee, but I guess that's the time for that has passed. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Let's do it! Oh my gosh, my stomach. With Little 5, I'm just like, it's very cool, because it's like such a time-honored thing. Alrighty, not a bad day.
Well, that was a lot of fun with Audrey Laval, obviously from a very prominent Little 500 family. Her older brothers Albert and Andrew on FISI, and Andrew will start on the pole tomorrow for FISI, so who knows, it could be a 2-championship weekend for the Lavals if everything turned out right. But here in the 34th running of the Women's Little 500, the story is Melanzana and Grace Williams. A 20-second lead for Melanzana. Grace Williams has been on the bike, well, we can say at least 15 laps now. In the 25th lap was when she really pulled away and got a half-lap lead on the rest of the pack. There's about 6 racers in the Chase Back Ski, AKO, DG, Kappa Gamma, Kappa Alpha Theta, and Teeter are all in that chasing pack.
Yeah.
And then Ride On a little bit ways back as well. But really that 8-team, 9-team race right now, but it's everyone chasing Melanzana.
Feels like deja vu a little bit with what happened last year, and DG might be kicking themselves. They did this last year to everyone else. Now they're in the chase back.
The difference, though, it feels like last year is DG. Obviously, Catherine Free was the leader of that team, the senior captain, but they had really 3 different riders they went to frequently in that race to exchange. Melanzana only has 1 other racer that really stands out in Abby Teed, their senior captain. So I think it's a little bit more of a question of can they keep this up?
Yeah, I mean, she is still, looking at her lap time, she's got a 38-second lap. Everyone else is at about a 40 to 41 second. I mean, she is continually doing fine. They're probably right now in the pit timing her laps, seeing when she's going to slow down. And when she gets to that point, they'll probably do an exchange. They have plenty of space. They have more than a half lap now. So they're going to feel comfortable to go to someone else to at least keep a good half to quarter lap lead.
Yeah, that was just a 40-second lap that Grace Williams completed, and this is maybe her 18th or so lap of this set. So she is not slowing down. Melanzana, the story of this race so far, and our Grace Ibarra is in the Melanzana pit.
Here with Sarah, the student coach for Melanzana. Grace Williams is holding up really well. A 40-second lap she just posted. Is she ever going to slow down?
You know what? Grace is just always moving fast. She's so talented.
And she's obviously built this lead for you guys. How long are you able to keep her on the bike?
I mean, I don't know. Grace is just a hoss. She's just always cranking out fast laps for us, so.
What's the game plan coming into this race?
Go fast, turn left. Yeah.
Pretty solid plan. And how much of that do you think with her background in cross country and track and field and being a Division I athlete has helped her?
I think good. She has a lot of that mental strength as well as physical. I'm so proud of her. I'm so proud of her.
What's the mood in the pit right now? Like, obviously it's really exciting.
What was that?
What's the mood in the pit like right now?
Excited. We love our supporters for being so excited.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Grace Williams continuing to extend the lead is certainly a very happy pit right now. now for Melanzana. I mean, it was a half a lap. I think it's now about a 3/4 lap lead for Grace Williams, and there's not a lot of help right now, which was similar to last year where teams weren't really willing to work together to chase after DG, and that lead pack right now is pretty spaced out with Theta, Teeter, Ride On, and Kappa Delta right now, the current 4 in that chase pack.
You know, and that's the only way these teams are going to get back up in there, is if they are going to work together. So they have, and I think it's spreading out because they want to go faster. They want to try to close this gap, but other people are struggling to hold on to the wheel. You know, it's such a tough scenario. But what Grace is doing is absolutely incredible. I mean, she is a powerhouse. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this. It's unbelievable. But now, we might have to worry about the 5 exchanges. They've only done 1. So they're going to have to exchange 4 more times.
She is still polling 43-second lap times. I mean, what's kind of an average lap time that you're looking at, and where are they timing her in the pit and saying, okay, it's time for, well, they're going to make an exchange right now.
The 43 seconds was probably about the tipping point. They're like, okay, she's slowed down significantly. Time to put someone else in. This pack needs to realize that. The pits down here, coaches need to be telling them to be speeding up. So she's still, I mean, they look fine. They look fine, but this chase pack looked like they could be speeding up a tad bit.
Abby Green, the junior, gets on the bike. You see Ski making an exchange, but it's Abby Green from Melanzana who will now hold the lead. Grace Williams built it, and now it's Green, the junior from Fort Wayne, majoring in neuroscience. Will try to maintain this lead for Melanzana. I guess it'd be interesting, do they have Green maybe do a 10-lap set and then put Williams right back on the bike?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. She needs to do a significant set of laps, though, to give Grace much more rest. But, you know, you still have Abby Teed. She's the one that got them in this position, because if they wouldn't have gotten up in that beginning pack, they wouldn't have been able to pull ahead. So she's a strong rider, the only one that's had any veteran experience. So you can't look past her, but certainly when you have such a strong talent like Grace Williams, it's incredible. And they're making more, getting a bigger lead now. So
now, a lot of teams are making exchanges. Teeter just made an exchange. Theta is going to make an exchange on the next lap. Their coach telling them 1 more. They currently lead that chase pack, but it is a significant deficit as Melanzana, it just seems like, even with Williams off the bike, they have continued to extend their lead and are going to even more as everyone else exchanges.
I mean, now Green has almost made it 3/4 of a lap. It was just 1 straightaway of a lead. So she looks fresh, and I think she knows what she needs to do. Their coach is telling her, you just give your best 10 laps of your life now, and we're gonna just have this and be able to hold on to it. I mean, she's coming up on this pack, getting close.
Jess Schluttler got on the bike, the senior for Theta, but they have to be shaking their heads right now, finding themselves in the same situation as last year, coming in as the race favorites and trying to win their 9th title, but an early breakaway has put Melanzana in front, similar to Delta Gamma last year. Question is, can anyone catch them? It's really the 3rd straight year we've seen an early breakaway in the women's Little 5. It backfired on Ski. It worked out well for DG. Does it backfire on Melanzana, or do they win their first ever women's Little 500?
I mean, they're about to come up on this pack and lap them. At that point, Melanzana just needs to stay safe. They can't get into any scenarios that could put them into danger. So I think this lead lap almost knows it. They look slow and they look tired, to be honest.
Abby Green, you see her on the bike. Right out of your screen in front of you is that lead chase pack. They have slowly fallen further and further behind, and the Melanzana pit looks like they are going to make an exchange when Green finishes her lap. He's going to burn here, though, and be right behind that lead pack. Obviously, the exchange is so big here for Melanzana as well with this comfortable lead.
She doesn't look like she's coming out. She's too far in right now. She's going to go another lap. She wants to get ahead of this lead pack, I think. But now she's in the middle of it. I don't know if that's a smart move. Stay a little bit behind the pack. Have such a big lead, but don't get so caught up into that you could get into a wreck.
Well, they had a biker ready, and then they just took her right back. So Melanzana and student coach Sarah Q, who you saw Grace talk to earlier, deciding that, hey, Abby, you're doing pretty well. And now she's essentially getting help. She's getting drafting from the riders that are a lap behind.
It's unbelievable. To do that so quickly, we're in lap 46, is just unbelievable.
And if she passes Akayo here, it is going to be for the second straight year. Melanzana, or well, a team is going to lap the pack, and in this case, it's Melanzana, and there goes green. Melanzana has lapped the field in the 34th running of the women's Little 500. This is unbelievable.
How she has the stamina right now. I mean, we were talking about Grace Williams, but my goodness, Abby Green has really showed up today. She was ready. I don't know, she carbo loaded last night, was ready to go.
Junior had not raced in this race before. Only the senior captain for Melanzana, Abby Teed, who started this race, had ever raced before. Melanzana has lapped the whole pack, and now what do? As you see, Ride On's going to make an exchange. What do you do if you're the rest of the pack? You're a lap behind. That's so much room to make up, as we're going to see Melanzana finally make the change here.
They're going to try to just stick on this lead pack, but I mean, for this quote-unquote chase pack, they have 42 seconds to make up here. That's incredible, very difficult to do. I think your mindset almost has to shift. It's a race for second. And I don't want to say that too early, but it's hard not to when you already have a team lap in the field before halfway.
Delta Gamma making an exchange, and Melanzana now a little bit behind the lead pack with a new rider on the bike. A lot of other teams making exchanges as well, and what's now become a very spread out field here in the women's Little 500. Over halfway through, at least for Melanzana, 52 laps gone. 42 seconds up for Melanzana.
The race can be such a chaotic time that when Melanzana took that lead, a lot of teams maybe didn't know what was happening, which makes it hard when they already have a half lap or big lead to chase them.
This is their fourth and final rider on the bike, Julie Torbick, the senior from Vernon Hills, Illinois. So they have used all four riders, and they haven't gone right back to Grace Williams, who's getting some much needed rest here as we approach the halfway point of this race. 51 laps to go. Melanzana, who started 13th in this race, and I talked with Grace Williams the other day, and she said it was such a windy day on quals. They just wanted to make sure to qualify and not have any problems, not start at the back of the pack. So they essentially just stepped off the bike, took it as easily as possible, and that has worked out to be a fine strategy.
You know, sometimes that's what you have to do, especially when you get to a third qualifying attempt. That actually happened to my team my junior year in 2016. And, you know, sometimes all you want to do is just qual. It's so much pressure on that day just to do well. But to be honest, I think Team Pursuit is a better indication of how well these teams are going to do, and Melanzana was second. So we knew they were going to be contender going in, but yeah, qualifying on your third attempt is no fun, that's for sure. Very nerve-wracking.
We are halfway through this women's Little 500, 50 laps gone, 50 to go. Melanzana sitting in that essentially chase back behind them, letting other riders do the work that have a lap up to try to catch up. Well, we've got a special guest up here in the broadcast booth. It's a pleasure to be joined by former rider and coach and Diddy Star IU Athletics writer, Zach Osterman. Zach, thanks so much for joining us today. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back.
A Little 500, first time in 3 years that we've had fans and this whole experience. So what's it like being here today?
Yeah, I mean, you know, by me, just about basically everyone. Even family weren't allowed last year. So yes, there was a race, but it was midweek, it was May. You know, like I said, even families weren't allowed. So we were talking about just almost kind of bare bones. I mean, to have this back, to have the spectacle, the atmosphere. I think this, if I'm not mistaken, is the first race since they sort of reconfigured everything around the new soccer facilities, which look really nice. It's nice to have this back, because the longer you went without it, the more you feared it might sort of change it forever, and maybe not in a positive way.
Interesting right now as we see Melanzana and their fourth rider, Julie Torbick, take a little bit of a lead in front of the front pack, and Ikayo is going to chase the burn here. And we'll see if Melanzana will make an exchange coming up. We'll get right back to you, Zach, but see if this is Abby Teed or if it's Grace Williams who gets back on the bike here for Melanzana, but we'll lose a little bit of time on this exchange. Zach, what are you seeing in this race? I mean, this is the second straight year we have seen a team essentially lap the field and have a monster lead really early on in this race.
Yeah, I think what's so difficult when the team gets a lap up is the theory of the chase is very easy. The theory of, you know, building a chase pack around maybe the 4 or 5 teams that are only a lap down, that all, you know, have a level of strength. The theory is great, but to actually coordinate it when you can't directly communicate with pits, you know, I mean, if you're lucky enough to have maybe 2 or 3 in a row, maybe you can do it, but to coordinate not just sets, but exchanges and, you know, workloads, and let's all try to get, you know, our number 1 rider on the bike together at this point in time. You know, so what winds up happening is the chase will come together for maybe a couple laps, 3 laps, 4 laps, but then someone will exchange, then someone will exchange off that. It'll all kind of blow up. That team will come back, and you get to a point in the race where, you know, maybe teams start to feel like there just is no more window and they just play for the field sprint.
I was going to ask you about that. You've been a rider, you've been a coach. You know how chaotic it can be down there, not really quite knowing all that's going on. But for this quote-unquote chase pack right now, what is their mindset at this point?
I mean, again, it's try to find an opportunity, you know, and you don't want to be reckless. You don't want to blow yourself up. And again, that's where it's hard, because what you want is to be able to find, you know, if you're a Theta or you're a Delta Gamma, you want to find 2 or 3 other teams that you can work with. But to build that chase, it's not like a normal bike race where you just put a group of riders together and they would all have race radios to be able to talk back to somebody in the pace car, and they would be out there all the time together. You're trying to figure out if there is an opportunity for a chase. You're trying to figure out, okay, when are we all going to exchange? When are we all going to attack? It can't be something where everybody's attacking together for 4 laps and suddenly somebody exchanges and disappears. Well, then all of a sudden the chase shrinks. Then somebody else needs to exchange. Then not everybody has fresh legs. And so then it kind of comes apart again. You know, the other thing that you kind of just look for is to see if you can create some opportunities, if there's a wreck, if there's a mechanical issue, something like that. But listen, I mean, I've been in a field where this has happened my freshman year in the men's race. Hans Arneson lapped the field in his first set, and to be perfectly candid, the rest of us just kind of looked up and said, okay, this is probably, you know, if the opportunity presents itself, we'll go for it. But it wasn't like we could build, and that was with 80% of the race left. It wasn't like we could build some massive chase. And you're also dealing with a team that had the legs to lap the field, so it's not like they're not going to have the legs to run you down if you do get maybe a straightaway lead.
Right, and you know, at this point, Melanzana's in that pack, so it's hard for that pack to make a move when
Right.
Melanzana's on the wheel and can just kind of hang back, and you know, they can't really make any time up or any space.
And that's another thing that, like, if you want a true chase, that's another thing you'd have to coordinate is when are we going to attack that team? You're not going to attack when they're all sitting on your wheel. Or excuse me, when they're sitting on your wheel, you're not all going to attack, because then, as you say, the attack doesn't really do a lot. You need to try and find a way to coordinate where you can sort of maybe get them on an exchange or something like that. And instead right now what you're seeing is Melanzana is basically counterattacking. Theta exchanged, the pack blew apart, DG is with them, but Theta's about a straightaway behind. I mean, this is very aggressive riding from Melanzana, to their credit.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had some couple of botched exchange down here, which I think kind of...
Ski and Rachel Miller going down in an exchange crash. But how about this? Grace Williams has completely lapped the field, and now she's trying to do it again, essentially. She's taking a lap and a 4th lead. And, I mean, this race is getting to a point where pretty soon it's just going to be a race for second. This is unbelievable.
You know, I was really hoping to see Grace Williams sprint today in the sprint finish. I don't think we're going to get that. But, I mean, you have to just take this for what it is, and it's just an incredible athlete. And she is proving to everyone that she's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, one more question for you, Zach, before you go. You've been so involved in the Little 500 and in Bloomington at IU. Why do you think this race is so special for you and to so many people?
Well, I think you think back to the years we didn't have it. That's probably what best illustrates it is not having it. Obviously, 2020, as hard as that was, we were losing everything. You could understand, you know, but to have the race as an event but not a spectacle last year, I think was a particularly sort of keen reminder of what it means. You know, the importance people place on it year on year. Obviously, it's important for students, and everybody wants students to have fun and all that stuff with, well, obviously, of course, being safe. But the riders, the former riders, alumni who come back, people in town, you know, excuse me, my 4-year-old's here. His first race was 2019. He has not been to one since. And I mean, he has no memory of being at the last race. And that's what we lost. We lost so many of those, you know, things that in sports can be the most important of the least important things, but it can give us those sort of cultural markers in our lives, Super Bowls, Final Fours. And this is obviously on a much smaller scale, but so important here to people in the IU community, people in the Bloomington community, and losing that, even having a race last year, but it not really feeling like this, I think is a reminder of just how much it means.
Absolutely. Really cool you bring your son along. That's awesome. Hopefully he'll be a
both
future
here.
rider.
4-year-old and a 3-month-old, so we have time.
We got about 16 years, and then I guess we'll see them here at the track. Well, Zach, an absolute pleasure for you to join us today, and really hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thanks, Zach.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That is Zach Osterman, former IU student, rider, coach, and you should also check out all of his great work he does with the Indy Star on IU Athletics. He's a great follow on social media. But meanwhile, on the track here, Grace Williams is essentially doing the same thing she did about 40 laps ago and just pulling away from everyone else in the field and saying, I am so much faster and so much better than all the rest of you.
Yeah, I mean, almost speechless at this point. Like, I cannot even imagine. I mean, ITTs, just to give you an idea, doing 4 laps alone is horrible. Like, no one wants to do that. She is doing this over and over and over and over again, and she is still gaining on the pack. Just showing how incredible of an athlete she is. But it looks like, you know, this now chase pack that's definitely chasing for second is working a little bit better together. They probably figured out, okay, well, this is where we're at right now, and just have to do with what we have in this scenario.
AKO, Delta, Gamma, and Teeter, some of those riders in that second pack. TPA, who was one of the favorites, got into an early crash, and they have never recovered in this race. There have been a fair amount of crashes we've seen in this race at different times. Well, we talked about some of our sponsors earlier, and we want to thank all of our sponsors once again here as we get to the latter half of the women's Little 500. You see them all there, and this is such a big production put on by so many people, and it would not be possible without all of our fantastic sponsors here of World's Greatest College Weekend. Let's send it down trackside to Grace Ibarra's more on race strategy.
Yeah, I just talked to Theta's Audrey Lavelle and asked her at this point, is there any strategy in trying to get the field unlapped? And she said, really the only way that they can do it is to work with other teams, and it doesn't really seem to be going well for them right now.
There's 4 teams right now working together in a chase pack, but the lead now just becomes bigger and bigger for Melanzana and Grace Williams. And again, she doesn't have a 1/4 of a lap lead. She has a lap and a 4th lead on Theta, on AKO, and DG right now. Teeter is close behind too, but it has really strung out behind them. And they're gonna make an exchange here. So Grace Williams, that was about a 15-lap set, more traditional, but she pulled even so much more room in between her and the rest of the pack.
You know, I'm wondering if this was really their strategy coming in. Like I said, I talked to Dave, the coach at AKO, and he told me that this was going to happen. But I also wonder if it was maybe more of a day of, okay, the weather's good, the track looks great, there's not a lot of wind. So we have the opportunity as long as we can get out of the middle of the pack at the start. So kind of curious to hear after the race, was this their strategy going in, or did it kind of evolve based off the conditions today?
It is Abby Teed, the senior captain, who's back on the bike, and she hasn't been on the bike since the first 15 laps or so of this race, so she's got fresh legs, and everything seems to be going Melanzana's way right now. They're trying to win their first ever Little 500. They were founded in 2012. They finished in the top 10 of 6 of 9 years, but last year they finished 4th. That was their highest ever finish. They've never even been on the podium before, and they are 33 laps away from winning their first ever Little 500.
You know, it's really exciting, though, to see teams that have never won before getting in positions like this. I mean, it's fun to see these traditionally historic good teams like Theta and DG winning, but to see a team like this, especially an independent team, which they have so many more hurdles to jump through than sorority teams do, to be able to come out like this, it's exciting for this racing community. So hopefully it's helpful for recruiting too for an independent team, which is also difficult.
Top 10 reset here as we are 2/3 through the race. Melanzana a lap and a 4th ahead of the pack in that chase pack. It will be a good fight for second. AKIO, Theta, DG, and Teeter all in the front. It's Jenna Rogers right now for AKIO. And all in a pack right now. Kappa just behind them. Kappa Kappa Gamma Ski, who's gotten into a couple crashes, is 7th. Kappa Delta is 8th. AD Pi might be could have, I don't know, not the story of the race, but a team that came out of nowhere that might feel really good about themselves today. They started 19th. We talked about them early in the race. They currently sit 9th, and Right On Cycling's having a great race as well. They sit 10th. So as much as we talked about Melanzana and Theta and AKIO and all these top teams, so many of these teams have worked so hard, and they know coming in they're not going to win this race, but they have goals, top 10, top 15, to just do the best they can and embrace this experience no matter what. And you know, I know for you with Phi Mu, very competitive, but you guys never won a race, but it was still incredibly valuable.
Well, and you know, when you crawl a little bit lower in the pack, you think, okay, what can we do? What are the goals, like you were talking about? My junior year, we crawled 24th, and we ended up finishing 6th, which was incredible. We knew we were better than 24th. When you crawl in your 3rd attempt, you kind of have to go a little easier. So for these teams, I mean, this is a huge success for them. And hopefully, I know so many teams struggled with recruitment this year, and I want to hammer this home. I'm hoping that this year's race for both the women's and the men's are a recruitment tool to hopefully get back to a full field for the women's next year in the near future.
Theta and Teeter both making exchanges in a fight for second right now. Theta, Teeter, AKIO, and DG, though DG had a little bit of trouble with their exchange. And those are the 3 teams right now in the chase pack, but it is all Melanzana today. Abby Teed still on the bike, and they are a lap and now about a half in front of the pack. Abby Green, excuse me, now on the bike for Melanzana. They've used all 4 riders. Abby Teed, their captain, was their only rider with experience in this race, but it has not mattered. They had the best rider in this race in Grace Williams. She has not once but twice just pulled her way ahead of everyone else. Started in lap 20, and it's looking like for the 2nd straight women's Little 5, we are going to see a blowout.
Yeah. You know, mention too a little bit how the track is holding up. We're 70 laps in now. You can kind of see that inner level layer, I guess, of the track looking a lot drier than the outside portion. You know, turn 1 can sometimes get like a little sketchy with how dry it can get. So Melanzana still has to just be like maybe a little timid going into some of their turns. They have nothing to worry about, but you don't want to go in there and crash, because that could just blow everything up. I mean, even in a crash, they might be okay. They're a lap and a half up now, but that's something you want to avoid. So something to look at just to see if any dust will start to kick up as the sun is drying the track a little bit.
It does almost feel like, though, with Melanzana in quals, where you play those exchanges so safe, they should just do the same thing at this point, because you have such a comfortable lead.
Right. Although a botched exchange won't do as much to, you know, hinder your position as a wreck would. But yeah, you certainly want to be safer. You might do more bike-to-bike exchanges, which are a little bit easier. They're a little bit slower, but it depends on the heights of their riders, of course. They're just going to cruise through this last quarter of the race and just hope to bring that first trophy to Melanzana.
Borg Warner trophy awaiting in the middle of the field, and Melanzana certainly seems to think they have their name written on it, and the 4 riders will get their name engraved on the trophy for eternity. Many special traditions of this women's Little 500 race. A lap and a half lead now for Abby Green, and you know more of the history than I do, but this has to be one of the most dominant performances in women's Little 500 history.
You know, and I was even going to mention something about this. I don't know the last time, I'd have to really look back through some of the results, but the last time a team that qualified outside of the top 10 or 13th like Melanzana did and won. That would be historic. But yeah, it's really, I mean, it's cool to see how they've really taken over this race, and it feels so dominant.
Julie Torbick, the senior, now gets on the bike for Melanzana.
Yeah, it's fun for these seniors. They're just having a joyride now and enjoy it.
Almost victory lap after victory lap. 3 seniors, but only 1 racer with experience. Grace Williams, again, if you weren't with us before, she was a Bloomington North cross-country and track superstar, wanted to leave Bloomington, so she went all the way to New Mexico with the Lobos. Competed 1 season there, was in college there for 2 years, as we're going to see Teeter, one of the front teams, make an exchange. And their rider getting on the bike, Lizzie Allen, the freshman, exchanging with Megan Tennell. But for Grace Williams, she wanted to get away, and then she eventually decided she wanted to come back and race cross-country back in her hometown, and then decided to try biking. And she said, you know, she'd done a little bit of biking before, a little bit of just casual road biking, but nothing ever competitive. And you'd kind of think, oh, there'd be a big learning curve as much as she's so athletic. But clearly she's just picked it up, and she was so casual and modest when I talked to her the other day about it. I didn't realize she ran cross country. She's just, I've done a little bit of running. Not that she's one of the best runners in Bloomington North High School history.
Well, you mentioned that. I reached out to all the teams, and one of the last questions I asked, like, is there anything interesting about your team that you want to add? No mention of her, being a former Division I athlete or anything like that. Very modest. She probably just doesn't even want people to know that, because she wants to be thought of as a cyclist, which she sure has been. And, you mentioned her being from Bloomington, and exciting to have fans back, and I'm sure she's got a big cheering family section right behind their pit over there in the far stretch.
I think it's almost a little bit reminiscent of breaking away. Someone from Bloomington, a townie, coming in and winning the race, as it appears to be Melanzana is 23 away from winning, and it is a fight for second right now. Akayo, Theta, DG, all in the second pack. There's a couple other riders who were laps back that are drafting right now in a second pack, is Melanzana making another exchange here, and they can exchange frequently, get all their riders lots of rest.
Well, now that this chase pack has gotten a little bit bigger, something to think about, you have riders that are not on the same lap as some of these, teams that are fighting for second place. So at some point in the race, they tell those teams to get to the outside of the track. It won't be a sprint for the first place, but it could be a sprint for second place, and that still means a lot. Getting second place in Little 5.
Getting on the podium's huge.
Yeah, you're still in the podium, third place as well. It's nothing to be ashamed about. So for these teams, they're going to have to set themselves up still for a decent sprint. They're just going to have a little bit of a different mindset behind it.
Theta, as you can see on your screen, taking a lead in that lead back. DG, who won it last year with a similar strategy to Melanzana on the outside. Akayo in the black jerseys as well. And the rest of the teams in that second pack are laps behind, but potentially helping out a little bit. As DG looks like they're going to go on a burn here and make an exchange in the fight for second. That's the real fight now. Melanzana looks like they're going to cruise to victory, but we'll see DG make an exchange. Try to go first last year and second this year.
That mechanic had to work hard to get that bike over. I got nervous there for a second. He wasn't going to get it there.
Shannon Kerr, the sophomore out of Detroit, Michigan, getting on the bike for DG, and she'll stay in that essentially lead pack, you can call it now, with Melanzana all alone. And back on the bike for them, Grace Williams.
So right now, just to clarify, it's Teeter, DG, Theta, AKO, and Ski that are all chasing for second place. Is that right? Yeah.
Well, we mentioned AD Pi. They have had a really outstanding race, and our Gracie Barra has a little bit more on their performance today.
I just went over to their pit and talked to them, and they didn't even realize that they were in 10th at the moment, and he told me that that was their stretch goal at the start of the race after starting at 19th, qualifying in 19th place. And when I asked their student coach how they were able to make up so much ground during the race, she said just all of the hard work and teamwork and just trusting each other, because this is an all-rookie team with AD Pi.
Well, thanks, Grace, and there's so many young teams across this race. Only a few seniors that were ever raced in front of fans and have this unique experience of participating in World's Greatest College Weekend.
DG and Theta, looks like Theta's coming out, but DG's trying to make a little bit of some space.
Theta will make an exchange in their fight for second. Getting off the bike is Audrey Laval, and on the bike is Abby Hummels, the senior.
That's when AKO,
fifth in ITTs.
AKO fell back a little bit. They needed to attack there to try to get back up onto Theta's wheel while they were catching the pack. But Theta looks like they are passing. They're going to be aggressive here. So they're going to probably try to now make some speed up and just solidify second place. They don't want to sprint.
That's their top rider, Abby Hummels, again, 5th in ITTs, experienced senior. They talked a lot about how tradition is so important to Theta, the 8-time champions. They don't look like they're actually, excuse me, that's Olivia Hubbard, the senior, actually. 2 seniors, 3 seniors on Theta, so a lot of experience. Hubbard on the bike right now, and she's going to try to do a little Grace Williams, I guess. Pull away from everyone else and try to solidify second. But the remarkable thing is I don't think there's really even any chance she's going to be able to unlap Melanzana, because they have a lap and a half lead on the field right now, with Grace Williams just continuing to chug away. Inside 20 laps left for them to hoist the Borg Warner Trophy.
You know, I was kind of curious if Theta was going to pull ahead in this race, because they have such experienced riders, with 3 of their 4 riders returning. And those 3 riders are all seniors. They're all best friends. So it seems like they could have done something like this. They just weren't prepared to do it so early, which is why, you know, right now they're like, well, we might as well just do it to get second place and solidify that, which right now they're doing it.
And talking with Theta, that's when they said lap 70 or 80 was when they wanted to pull away and try to win this race, but essentially it's going to pull away and try to take second. They were 3rd last year when DG pulled away from everyone early. They used 3 different experienced riders, led by Eleanor Madeline, Kensington Nolan as well, who's one of their coaches, to win their 4th ever championship. Melanzana, they really relied on Grace Williams, but you got to give credit to their whole crew, Abby Teed, Abby Green, and Julie Torbick, along with their coach, Shara Q. Theta making another exchange here, but they built such a big lead now.
Now it looks like DG's really trying to chase. Their coach came out and said, go, go, go. Try to chase Theta, because they don't want to settle for 3rd. So it looks like everyone's kind of hopping on their wheel and working to make that space. But Theta's doing a really good job. If that was their strategy to begin with, then there you have it.
Well, let's give you a full lap reset. 22 teams in this 34th running of the Little 500, and 22nd AE Pi. It's Sigma Delta Tau in 21st, Sigma Kappa in 20th. Independent Council Cycling, who we talked to before the race, they have 2 riders that are in the Air Force ROTC. They are in 9th. AO Pi is in 18th. Alpha Gamma Delta in 17th. Crew Cycling, had some big expectations for this race, but they are in 16th. Phi Gamma Nu is in 15th, Delta Zeta in 14th, KD's former team Phi Mu. Pretty good performance today, they are in 13th. CSF Cycling in 12th, and Ride On, who's had a good race as well, is in 11th. The top 10, Kappa Delta in 10th. AD Pi continues really to be the breakout team of this race. They started 19th, they are in 9th, and they're finished 8th last year, their best result this century. They're trying to challenge that again. It is TPA who, unfortunately, they got in the biggest crash of this race just 10 laps in, and they never recovered. They sit 8th, and that's just the reality of this race, that they got into a big crash early and never recovered. But just to round out the field, Ski in 7th, Kappa Kappa Gamma in 6th, Delta Gamma, AKIO, Teeter, and Theta from 5 to 2 in that order, still all fighting for second, but it is a quarter of a lap lead for Theta in the fight for second, and then of course Melanzana a lap and now about 3/4, again a lap and 3/4 in front of this pack. If they really want to go for it, they might be able to lap the field 2 times.
You know, I'm thinking now ahead to next year, how this race is preparing these women for next year. And it's crazy. I feel like a lot of these riders have not got a lot of pack experience, which is something we talked about ahead of this race. So it's just interesting because pack riding is so important for your experience to learn how to maneuver around it. And it's been so spread out that I don't feel like almost any team's really gotten a lot of experience in that facet.
There's not been much of a pack. Right now, AKIO and AKIO trying to chase after Theta and with Jenna Rogers and try to chase after Theta for that second spot, but right now it is Jess Shuttler, the senior for Theta, and they will exchange again. Theta exchanging a lot here late in this fight for second, but
this is when this pack needs to really push up. They're not noticing it, but they really should have sped up here. It's hard. You have no way to communicate. You know, your pit cannot communicate to you. It'd be nice to have a little headset in your helmet, but no, that's not how it works. So they had an opportunity to push there, but it wasn't there. They didn't see it.
Now Abby Hummel's on the bike for Theta, and talking to riders, they say it's so hard to know what's going on the track. They may not know exactly where Melanzana is compared to other teams, and with that communication, it gets very hard to work together, and maybe that's part of why we saw DG and what they did last year and Melanzana do an equivalent, is no teams were really willing to communicate and work together, as Abby Hummels is really going on a tear here to pretty much solidify second, it looks like. Teeter's going to make an exchange in that fight for the podium.
And this might be Abby Hummel's final set on this track. Yeah. So she is putting it all out here. She's a senior, but this is her first and last race. She wasn't able to race last year because of an injury. So, you know, she's putting it all out there. She only gets one last chance. She says, you know what? I can't get first, so I might as well get second.
Talking to Theta, you know, championships are so important. This will be the first class since 2013 of the Theta sisters that will not see a championship. Wow. Which is remarkable, but they said, you know, it's less about winning the championship and more about the community and the traditions and the people you know. And for Theta, they are certainly the epitome of that and what makes Little 500 special. DG's going to make an exchange.
Absolutely. This race, yes, you want to win it, but only one team's going to win. It's all about the friendships, the experiences. I'll give a shout out to all my girls I met through cycling, not only on FIMU cycling, but through Riders Council. Those are lifelong friendships. And that's really what it's all about when you're a rider, is having these incredible friendships with not only your teammates, but others.
Melanzana will make another exchange here.
So will Theta.
10 laps to go. Both teams have been busy. Theta has solidified second in this race, and Melanzana is going to cruise to a victory. And now the fight is for the last spot on the podium for third. Teeter is going to cross this 90th lap for them in front. AKIO and DG right behind. Those are the last 3 teams likely competing. Now, Kappa Kappa Gamma, Isabella Oganovich still on the bike for them, are not too far behind to try to make it onto the podium as well. There's that fight for third and AKIO.
So this is what's going to get interesting. When the winner crosses the finish line, which they're on 91, you know, the other teams are 1 or 2 laps behind, you know, they give it, you know, maybe a half a lap to a full lap more before they call the race. So it's who's going to be in position in the third place at that point. So you have, you know, 9 laps to do it. AKIO might have the legs, DG might have the legs to pull off and solidify third, because it's not going to be a sprint. It's going to be wherever they wave that flag to end the race.
Teeter will make an exchange and put the freshman Lizzie Allen on the bike, which will put them behind AKO and DG in that fight for third. Melanzana cruising to their first ever Little 500 title. It was about 20 laps in. Grace Williams extended her lead. We saw it, and it was just a truly remarkable feat, and we thought at some point she might slow down, but it was a 15-lap set that I think is going to go down in Little 500 history as one of the more special things we've seen, essentially lapping the field and then coming back in about the 60th lap and finishing that lapping of the field to double it up and essentially put this race away.
I'm wondering if she'll come back on for like a final victory lap, kind of, you know, honoring her work to make this a win. But again, like I said, Abby Green did such a good job on her first set after, you know, after that. So it just, that helped solidify. So I think this team all around was better than maybe a lot of people expected. And that's what you need to support.
Melanzana talked about all their alumni, again founded in 2012. This is their 10th race. They've never finished on the podium until now, and 3 seniors that will go out with the ultimate prize, the Little 500 win. As talked about Abby Green, she's on the bike right now for Melanzana, and they are going to lap essentially the third place teams.
Twice. This is the second time they're lapping them.
The only team they haven't lapped for a second time is Theta, who has pulled away and will finish in seconds. And you wonder if Theta only regrets that they didn't chase after them, because they certainly have the riders and have showed it here late. But
and they have the knowledge down there too with Ryan Knapp, you know, as their coach. So I don't know if it's that they didn't see it. Maybe they just didn't think that they could hold it, or they didn't think Grace Williams was going to be on the bike that long. But it looks like they're giving everyone on Theta one last chance to be on the bike here to solidify that second place finish.
Olivia Hubbard will get on the bike for Theta. They have a half a lap lead in the fight for second. It's a tight race for third still here in the women's Little 500. DG, Akayo, and Teeter all still in contention to try to earn that third and final spot on the podium.
I think it's now between DG and Akayo, and again, like, where are they going to stick behind? No, Melanzana is coming out for an exchange, so they're going to have to figure it out if one of them is going to pull out, and we'll see which one pulls ahead to try to solidify third.
You saw the pit for Melanzana. I'll tell you, the party is already starting down there. You can imagine the alumni across the country, the families watching, hearing about this special day. It's going to be a day none of these riders, families, and alumni will ever forget. It's the senior captain, Abby Teed, on the bike for Melanzana, their only returner. And talking with Grace Williams, she said that she really showed us the ropes. And you know, in the fall, we didn't necessarily know what was going on. Grace Williams said it wasn't really even until winter training that I really found out that this was something I wanted to do and we could be a really good team.
You know, hats off to Melanzana for giving Teed the last bit of this race, because she's the one that carried them. You need a veteran rider to help out with all the things to get to this point. It's really hard when you're an all-rookie team and you have no idea what you're doing. So to have a leader like Abby is huge, and they're showing that, you know, that matters.
DG will get on an exchange to a huge cheer from their crowd. It is Rebecca Running, the sophomore.
Well, now Akayo has a nice lead. We'll see if DG can try to get up. But again, only a couple of laps to do this. So
Akayo is going to make another exchange here, so that might even things up.
Yeah.
Akayo, their best ever finish was second in 1998. Last year finished 7th. This would be huge for them to get on the podium, and how much they've built their way up to the top of this race.
They got third in 2014, which I think was their top, maybe one of their last podium finishes. They may have had another one in between, but that was an incredible sprint finish.
Listen to this crowd as Jenna Rogers gets off. Claire Bruin on for Akayo, and now DG will take a slight lead in that fight for third, while Melanzana about to win this race. The white flag is getting prepared. It's Abby Teed still on the bike. It looks like the senior captain is going to finish off this race for Melanzana.
Akayo's kind of sitting back. Oh, now she's kind of coming around, so maybe she's going to try to make her move.
The 34th running of the women's Little 500. One more lap to go for Melanzana to win their final race. Here's the white flag. Abby Teed will finish it off for Melanzana. She is 2 laps up on everyone in the field with the exception of Theta, who will finish second and is a lap and a half back. What a special moment here. Melanzana getting ready to celebrate. They qualified 13th, founded in 2012. Their highest finish was 4th. They will win their first ever Little 500. Here comes Teed around the final turn. There's a new queen atop the women's Little 500. Melanzana wins the 34th running of the women's Little 5. One of the most dominant performances we have seen in Little 500 history. They lapped twice almost the entire field. It will be Theta who will finish in second. The white flag is out for them to make their final lap. They have their senior captain on the bike in Abby Hummels for one final lap for second. Melanzana is celebrating. Are we ready to send it down? Let's send it down to their pit. Gracie Barra is down in the chaos.
Hey, you guys. Well, I've got to fight through the tears here for a little bit, but Melanzana, Women's Little 500 2022 champions. How does that sound? Amazing. Amazing. You guys lapped the field not once, but twice. Did you guys expect this? What was the game plan going into it?
Just give it our best, and that was what we did.
We wanted to drop the hammer and see.
Drop the hammer?
Yeah, and they definitely did.
It's the 10th year of Melanzana cycling, 10th anniversary. You guys finished in 4th last year. How special is it to do this on this anniversary?
I don't even know how to describe it.
A better feeling in the world. And Grace, it's your first race. How do you feel you gave them everything you got on your first try?
Yeah, it was more than I ever could have expected. I don't know, it just feels amazing. Especially with this group of people. I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else.
Yeah, pretty good addition to the team. And James, how proud are you of them?
So much. There's been a lot of fans getting here. Watching the growth from Abby from her freshman year, from Julie, from everyone, from these two stepping in this year. It's been really cool to see, and I'm excited to see what the team does next year. I think we have a lot coming, and I'm just excited to see it come together.
I mean, it's just hard to even put these emotions into words. Is there anything that you guys can try to sum up how you feel right now?
We're so grateful for all the people that are here that traveled to come support us, and all of the people that made Zana what it is and created this culture. We're just happy to be able to carry it on.
And maybe you guys, a legacy for sure.
Like all these people out here.
I mean, how proud are you guys of them? Well, there you have it, you guys. Melanzana, your 2022 Little 500 champions. Congratulations.
Thanks, Grace. There is a lot of fun down there in that pit. We did have a mini sprint finish for the podium while we were down in the pit. It was pretty exciting between Akayo and DG, and it was Jenna Rogers, the junior, who was able to, with 4th in ITTs, just outrace DG for that 3rd spot. Theta comfortably in 2nd, a 4th of a lap up in them. DG got 4th. Teeter was the only other team to finish in 5th. Kappa in 6th. It was TPA who got into a big crash early, never recovered. 7th. Ski is 8th. 80 Pi, what a impressive race for them. They started 19th, an all-rookie team. They finished in the top 10 in 9th, and Kappa Delta rounds out the top 10 in 10th.
You know, that sprint finish was fun. It wasn't exactly what we were expecting, but Rogers coming out on the outside, she saw the opportunity, went for it. You know, they were so excited when that happened, really happy. And you just have to take everything with a little grain of salt. You don't get first, but man, you still rode a heck of a race.
And it was really a fight for 2nd, and then Theta decided to pull away in about the 80th lap, which was their game plan going into it, and essentially they would have won the race if Melanzana didn't exist and Grace Williams didn't exist, and I bet everyone else in the field wished Grace Williams had decided to stick with running instead, as you see that sprint finish right there at the end. That's a great job by our replay crew, with AKO taking third and getting back on the podium. As you said, it's been a long time coming for AKO. They were 7th last year, now 9 straight top 10s, but a really outstanding performance for them. Melanzana and their 4 riders getting together. I think they're still a little bit in shock right now. A remarkably dominant performance. They lapped twice, almost the entire field. Really unparalleled performance this afternoon, Katie, and I don't think any of us expected this, especially because last year we saw, as we're getting one last look here at the sprint finish, as it was really exciting here at the end. AKO and Rogers able to win, and Teeter was right there as well.
I don't know if you saw that, but Teeter kind of fishtailed there. That might have kept them from being able, like, she almost looked like she was off a little bit, so that could have kept her. And again, so it comes down to that track, the inside getting a little drier, so that honestly was not to their advantage there. But you see all of Melanzana's fans gathering around their team, getting ready for the victory lap across the field or across the track, and really exciting for them for their first ever Little 500 win.
First ever win for Melanzana, and you think of the women's race, and we kind of touched on it earlier, it's really been dominated by 3 teams recently. Since 2010, Theta, DG, and Teeter have won all of the races since 2010, with the exception of one that was won by Phoenix Cycling.
And that's who I was talking about, Tabitha. And that's kind of, you know, similar.
Yeah.
They didn't lap the field like this, but they had quite the strong rider. Oh, look at this. So fun to see all the excitement.
Grace Williams, one of the legendary performances today in women's Little 500 history, almost single-handedly putting a lap up. But as you said, Katie, you have to give so much credit to this entire team for what they were able to do.
Absolutely. You have the senior leadership of Abby Teed.
We see AKO getting the 3rd place trophy, and there's a lot of smiling faces for all of their experience, and 2 seniors make it on their squad, all 4 returners, and what a really good accomplishment for AKO, qualifying 2nd and finishes 3rd, and certainly a proud head coach in Dave Harstead, who won the race with Fiji in 1995.
He wanted to win today. I mean, I was talking to him before the race, like I'd mentioned, and you know, it wasn't quite their day, but a 3rd place finish in that manner, you know, like that manner, a little sprint, that's a fun way to finish 3rd.
One of their best finishes ever. They finished 2nd in 1998. They're back on the podium today. The 2nd place team, the Yankees per se of the women's Little 5, Kappa Alpha Theta. They finished just short. They were 3rd last year, 2nd this year, and you can kind of see it in their faces, a mix of disappointment. They wanted to win their 9th ever title. There were 3 seniors on this team. Audrey Laval will be the only rider to return next year, but nonetheless, a lot to be proud of for Theta, who dominated the spring series, winning that.
Yeah, you know, I think that they have mixed feelings, and you know, sometimes you just have to go with it, and you know, you weren't the best team out there, and that's just how it is. But again, 2nd place is wonderful. Happy for those 3 seniors that are best of friends. It'll be interesting to see what the future of Theta will be like with just 1 returning rider with Audrey.
Well, they seem to always reload and have a lot of success no matter what. Tradition is certainly key, and they had a massive crowd turn out today, all in matching Theta white shirts. Melanzana getting ready to wear the traditional winner's lays. Purple jerseys, first time ever Melanzana Cycling wins this race.
You see EG down here too, a lot of their fans so excited about their finish. That's what it's all about, still enjoying the experience no matter what place you get in.
And just having the fans back was so big. Here comes Melanzana though, there are 4 riders, 3 seniors. And they win the 2022 edition of the Women's Little 500.
With the award ceremony of the Indy 500 Festival of Presidents for Light Bloomington,
A moment they will never forget in their lives.
Lisa Meta, Megan Reddy, and Leanne Roth with the presentation of the lays to the team.
Abby Teed, the senior out of Indy, their captain, major in biology. Grace Williams, the senior, former cross-country and track superstar, native of Bloomington, another bio major. Abby Green, the junior, who really followed up Grace Williams' tear and held on to that lead. Junior out of Fort Wayne, majoring in neuroscience, and Julie Torbick, the senior out of Vernon Hills, Illinois, in comprehensive design. And certainly the strategy worked from their student coach, Sarah Q, as well, the sophomore from Carmel. When they talked to me earlier, they said, we just want to be in the sprint finish final, but clearly something changed.
Yeah, I still want to know what was their strategy going into today. I'm going to have to go track them down after this and figure that out, because it's always interesting to hear. But yeah, congratulations to Melanzana. What a performance.
The Borg Warner Trophy, their 4 names will be engraved on there. They don't get to keep it. It's a little bit like the Stanley Cup, and they don't get to keep it for a day either and take it around home, which I think would be fun. But they do get their names engraved there forever, and it will sit in the IUSF offices and be back out here next year. The winning bike and the celebrations for Melanzana. They qualified 13th. They took it easy, and they dominated the field in one of the most dominating performances we've seen in the women's Little 500.
Now you think about what's the future of Melanzana. This has to be huge for not only getting, more riders interested in riding with them, but you still have Abby Green. She's a junior. You have 2 returning riders. You have Julie that's returning as well. So they still have a strong, team for next year. Half of it filled already.
The future is certainly so impacted by all of these teams, and there was that early crash that played a big role in this race. It knocked out TPA. There was a couple of smaller crashes later, but really that was the big one about 10 laps in. We never had a caution, no serious injuries, which was good. And in the end, it was Melanzana who dominated the race, senior Grace Williams, and the rest of the squad. What an impressive performance. Want to thank all our crew today. Really, it was a team effort. Our executive director, Galen Clavio, my spotter, Jack Edwards. It was an absolute pleasure, Katie, working for the first time with you today.
It was a lot of fun. It was so fun to be back. Obviously hadn't been back for a race since 2019, and now in such a cool way to be a part of it and bring this back to fans and family that couldn't be here today. So thanks for having me. It was a blast.
An absolute pleasure. A dominant performance by Melanzana. Rounding out our crew, our director Ethan, our technical director Christian Steiner, our producer Emma Watson, and I'm Griffin Epstein. Thank you to everyone who's made this possible as the 34th running of the Women's Little 500 won by Melanzana. Stay safe tonight, Bloomington, and good night from the Little 500.